Hello, welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on 1917. Well, that was a movie. Now, 1917 was directed by Sam Mendes, and yes, it is a 2020 movie. Don't argue with me here. I know it had a limited release in 2019, but that was obviously just a ploy to try to get into the Oscars without actually being viewed by anybody other than critics. And it worked. They got into the Oscars, good job. But none of us saw it until 2020, so it doesn't count. That's why it wasn't in my top 10 list last year. I don't know if it would have made it or not. I don't remember my whole top 10 list, and that's why it's probably going to end up in my list this year. That's why, take it or leave it, it's a 2020 movie, trust me. So in case you don't know the plot of 1917, it's about two soldiers trying to make their way from one encampment to another encampment to warn those troops that they're going into certain death. And then a wrench thrown in there too is that one of the troops that they're trying to prevent from going over there is one of these main two troops' brother. So that makes it have the Saving Private Ryan type feel, but it's also somewhat of a light thriller. Now there's actually two interesting facts about this movie, one of which I'm positive you already know, and that it's all one shot. Not literally, but it's filmed and edited to look like it was all one continuous shot from a singular camera. That's not the case. It's some editing tricks, but it does look like it. Now, the other interesting fact that you may or may not know is that the events in this movie are actually based on true stories from Sam Mendes' grandfather from World War I. And because of that, I can't critique the plot too much because it supposedly actually happened that way. That being said, the plot is kind of lackluster. I will admit that. This movie as a whole did honestly feel like a gimmick movie. The gimmick here being that it's all supposed to be one shot. It's all edited and filmed to look like one shot and done expertly. It looks great. It really does. But that's the one thing that this movie really feels like it's about. And I know it's about these soldiers and trying to save these other soldiers, but we never get to know any of these characters. We never get a real attachment to them because how this gimmick works is you're never given time for backstory. You're never given time to have flashbacks or introductions. It's just, here we're walking for 2 hours. And you can do tricks where time passes faster or slower through different passages of time that they can show through different editing tricks. It was done in Birdman and done very well. That didn't all happen within 2 hours or however long that movie was. It happened over days. And that's the same thing for this movie, is that it's not all actually 2 hours happening, but it's not much more than that either. There's not a whole lot going on other than them walking and them trying to get there. And so it's kind of frustrating because I can't get that out of my mind while watching this movie, that this movie was designed to win an Oscar. That's what this movie was made for. Yes, it was to try to tell a story. It was to try to do something artistic. But this movie, you can tell from its release date and how they did all of that, that they were trying to win an Oscar. Because if you're trying to win an Oscar, you do one of two things. You put out a movie at the end of the year, or you put out a movie in the summer. The summer is when everybody sees a movie, so if you think that your movie is going to gain a big audience and everybody's going to be talking about it for months, you put it out in the summer so everybody sees it and has a chance to see it a second time, and people just love it more and more. But the danger with putting out movies in the summer is that you have time for people to sit on the movie and go, actually, on second thought, I didn't love that as much as I thought I did. The plot was a little bit lackluster. There wasn't too much to it, and I kind of just got bored by it on second thought. So if you're afraid of that happening, then you put your movie out in December, around Christmas, because then everybody sees it once, they're all hyped on it, and don't have time to sit back and think about, wait, maybe I didn't like that as much. Nope, it's Oscar season now. What movie did you really like? The one I just saw last week. It was great. That's why this movie came out in limited release on Christmas, because he wanted it to qualify for the Oscars, but he didn't want a lot of people to see it, and he not only didn't want time for them to see it, he made it a limited release, so mainly 90% of the people that saw this movie were the critics. And critics are more likely to like an artsy movie like this that does the tricks with the camera and the editing. It's also not a movie that people generally would want to watch around Christmas as regular audience members because it's a war movie. Who wants to watch that at Christmas? That's depressing. He did every trick in the book to try to win as many Oscars as he could, and he didn't even win Best Picture. And I think that says a lot. Because this movie is good. It's solid. It's fine. But at the end of it, it felt kind of empty. It felt kind of manipulative. And it kind of just felt okay. I know, I've had plenty of time to think on it. It's 11 months later, it's almost a year since this movie came out, and I'm just now giving my first thoughts on it. It's not even my first thoughts, I've seen it a couple times now, so I've had time to dwell on this and had time to revel in it, and that's honestly why I didn't review it for a while, was because I didn't really feel like talking about it for a while, because I didn't really feel like it was anything that special. And you can point out to how great the editing and how great the camera work is, and it is, and the sound too for that matter. But when I look at that, and I've already seen Birdman, which does that same editing trick and that same filming trick better, and with a good story that's interesting, has great acting and interesting ideas and motives and good dialogue and all these different visuals and stuff, watching all that stripped away just solely for the trick, I didn't care. I really didn't. And like I said, I can't critique the plot too much because it really happened, supposedly. I don't know how accurate it is or anything. I don't know if it's literal events or just based on a true story. But I can't tear apart the story too much. But I will say that nothing really that interesting happened in this movie. This movie didn't offer anything new that I haven't seen in something else. Because, yeah, you've got the editing and the camera work. Already seen that in Birdman. You've got them trying to save the brother by trying to get to him in time. Yeah, I've seen that in Saving Private Ryan. Well, it's a war movie about World War I. I've seen better World War I movies. So I'm left with just, well, it's a true story about Sam Mendes' grandfather. Okay, good for him. I'm happy for him. I'm glad he got to tell that story. I'm sure it meant a lot to him. It didn't mean anything to me. And I didn't know who these characters were, and I didn't relate to them, and I didn't have any bond with them, and I didn't have any interest or investment with them either, other than the fact that they're human beings. I hope they make it out of it okay. I didn't love it. And this is going to sound like I'm being really critical of it. And I am being critical of it, of the idea of it, and the way they went about making this movie. I hate how manipulative they were because they knew what they were doing. The average person might not know, but anybody who's in the critic scene, anybody who knows anything about Oscars, knows exactly what they're doing, and it was frustrating because you're just watching them go, they're going to get away with this too, aren't they? And they did. They won some awards for it. But it is genuinely still a good movie. It was a lot of fun to look at. The sound editing was amazing. I enjoyed the ambiance of it, the acting, although you didn't really ever get to know any of the characters, they were acted perfectly fine. And so at the end of the day, I do think it is a solid movie. It is a good movie. It is a 7 to 7.5 movie. But there's a lot of 7 to 7.5 movies put out every year. They're not all Best Picture runner-ups. They're not that good. But now, in a year like 2020, it's probably got a good chance of making this list. It's not a bad movie. In fact, it's a above average movie. It's a good movie. It's a pretty good movie. I just think that it's overrated. And so when I talk about it, I kind of skew toward the negatives. Now, there's a lot of positives. I don't feel like I have to point that out, though, because, yes, the camera work was amazing. Oscar-worthy. Yes, the sound mixing was amazing. Oscar-worthy. The visual editing, it's great. There were so many good things about this movie, but at the end of the movie, I just didn't feel fulfilled by it. I didn't feel like I experienced anything new or special by it. And so that's what I really want out of a movie, especially when it's presented to me as that type of movie. This movie was built up to be that type of movie, and it wasn't. So that's why it's just kind of disappointing to me. It's not a bad movie in any way. It's pretty much flawlessly made. It's pretty much basically in every way perfect. But I just didn't care. And it's not because I'm a stingy movie critic that hates every movie. It's because this movie didn't have heart. At least to me, it didn't feel like it did. So it's a perfect outer shell, but it just felt empty. It just felt meaningless at the end of it. So I have to give it something like a 7 because, yes, they did everything right, except for give it a soul. If you like artsy movies, if you like eye candy, this movie's for you. If you haven't seen it yet for whatever reason, it's been out for a while. It's definitely a lot of fun to witness, especially in a big theater, I'm sure. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it just at home on a DVD player. I'm sure if you could get a blacked out room with a big old screen, it would be something to behold. But to me, if a movie is good, if a movie really is good, you should be able to watch it on your phone and enjoy it just as much. Maybe not literally just as much, but you should be able to enjoy it a lot. That's just my viewpoint. If you take away the big visuals and the big sound and you don't have anything left, then I don't really feel like that was art to begin with. It was just a good trailer, a good poster. There's an element of art to that. And I'm not saying that the people who made this movie weren't talented. They were extremely talented. I couldn't ever possibly put this in consideration for the best movie of the year, especially with some of the actually really good movies that have come out this year. Will it make the top 10? It could. It really could. I don't know that I would have made it last year if I had put it in with that group. I don't know. With this year and the group of movies we have, it's got a good chance. Because, yes, well made, but well made what? So anyway, that's what I think of it. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of it, especially if you think I'm wrong, let me know and we can talk about it. Also, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.